Hi everyone, this is Callie. Thanks so much for being here with me today. I'm sharing a shaker card today using some Hero Arts products. This is the Bee Floral Window, and there are coordinating stencils, which I absolutely love. This intricate window has lots of different images on it. There's flowers, there's bees, there's leaves. So there's lots of colors to be added, and there are 5 stencils to this stencil set. So I want to make sure that I add lots of color. So before I started ink blending, I made sure I was fully aware of what images were on what stencil to make sure that I coordinate properly to get the right colors in the right places. I'm using the waffle flower stencil mat, and it really helps hold my paper in place while I change out all the different layers of the stencils. You can start with any layer. I'm going to start with the larger flowers, the solid blooms, and I made sure to note where the bees' wings were, so I'm going to leave those open so that we can ink blend them with some blue. I did a light hand on all of the pink, and now I'm doing a light hand on those wings. Next, we're going to switch out the stencil and work on the details on the flowers as well as on the bees. All the ink colors I'm using today are from Simon Says Stamp and from their Positively Saturated ink line. Be sure to check out the coordinating blog post where I'll list all of the colors used, and as well as in the description links below, everything will be linked for your convenience. Next, I'll work on the bees using a yellow ink. And then I'll switch out my stencil again. The next stencil is going to focus on the details on the bodies of the bees. For this, I'm using a dark gray ink. I know you can use black. I just, for some reason, feel weird about using the hybrid black inks that I have for ink blending. So I'm using the darkest gray that I have from the Positively Saturated ink line. And there's also branches on this layer, so I'm using a dark green to stencil on the branches. Now I'm down to the last 2 layers, which is the foliage. For these broad foliage leaves, I'm using a lighter green and applying a soft hand, and because I use the same blending brush on all of my greens, I know that there is darker residual green on my brush, so I'm concentrating those at the base of those leaves first, and then allowing that natural lighter color to come through as I blend around the leaves' outer edges. Now onto the final stencil. This is the more detailed layer of the leaves. I'm using a darker green, and this time I'm not worried about the darker green contaminating anything because it's the darker shade that I'm using. And that completes the ink blending process for this. I just love how this Bee Floral Window turns out. So now that we're done ink blending, I'm going to use the coordinating Bee Florals window, and I'm going to line it up and try to be as perfect as I can and die cut this in the die cutting machine. And when it comes out, what you get is this floral window, and the center part pops out as well as some little negative bits, and what you're left with is a beautiful frame, and you can curl up the leaves and give it more dimension. There's cuts and lines all around all of the petals, and so there's so much detail to this. So I'm going to turn it into a shaker card, and to do that, I'm first going to trim down my card panel. I'm cutting 1/8 of an inch off all the way around my card panel before I turn this into a shaker window. To do that, I've cut a acetate panel to the same size, and I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive on the back of this Bee Floral window and then attach my acetate. If you decide not to turn this into a shaker window, at this point, all you have to do is create some color in that window space, put it on a card base, and put your sentiment on it, and you're done. I want to create a bit more of a fun background for my shaker window, so I'm using this honeycomb hot foil plate by Hero Arts as well. I've gotten my hot foil machine here all ready to go, and I'm going to undock this, run it through my die cutting machine, and what you see revealed is some solid gold honeycombs. Now I don't want to use the solid honeycombs, I want to use the negative. So what I'm going to do is put this on a solid hot foil plate, and then I'm going to foil the negative. And what you're left with is just the outline of the honeycombs, and that's what I'll use on my card today. So once it's revealed, you'll see those outlines of the honeycomb. It's not perfectly foiled, and that's completely okay. This is pressed down pretty good, so I'm not able to remove the release paper right away, but once I started fussy cutting around that plastic came loose and I was able to peel it off. So after fussy cutting, I'm going to determine how I want this to look in the background of my frame. I decided to cut this off into a few different sections so that can create some interest and additional framing underneath this window. So I have 3 pieces, and I'm going to adhere this to a card base. But before I do that, I'm going to ink blend it with a little bit of yellow so it looks a little bit more realistic in the background. I have a card base here that I'm going to add a little bit of blue ink to. This is the same blue ink that I used on the bee's wings earlier. Then I'm going to attach my honeycomb sections to that card base right over that blue ink blended area. And I'm trying to make sure that the honeycomb lines are vertical so that they look uniform going all the way down, if that makes sense. I'm just making sure that they don't look off-centered in any way as far as the honeycomb shape goes. Then I'll fill my shaker window with some iridescent sequins, and then I'll attach foam adhesive to the back of my window panel to seal my shaker window together. I did have to fussy cut this last piece of foam a little bit just so that I can leave those negative areas open. And then I'll line up my frame over that background and then seal the shaker window to my card base. And now that our shaker card is done, I need to work on a sentiment. This sentiment is from the Bee Leaf stamp set. It's a beautiful set with a sakura flower branch and lots of fuzzy little fat bees that are so cute. And it was voted a My Monthly Hero kit favorite. So now it's been turned into individual stamps that you can buy. So be sure to check that out as well. I'm going to stamp and emboss my sentiment over black cardstock, and then I'll heat set that. And because there isn't a coordinating die, I like to fussy cut around my sentiments. I know a lot of people don't like to fussy cut, and so doing a sentiment strip is just fine. I just like the more delicate spacing around all of the words, especially for an embossed sentiment like this. So I added some red line adhesive to make sure that it adheres to that window perfectly. And I thought I was done, but now that the ink has dried, that gray looks really, really light. So I decided to use a mono Tombow drawing pen, and I'm going to add some details back onto those bees and just create more depth with a black pen. So that finishes my card for today. I really hope you enjoyed this. I love this new Bee Floral Window from Hero Arts, and I hope it inspires you to create. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll give this video a thumbs up. I'm going to link to 2 more videos if you're interested in seeing more. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great day. Bye, everyone.